Now it's time for No Pucks Given with Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Penguin Scoop's locker room buzz and straight-up analysis. No fluff, all hockey. Now, here's Dan.
Well, it's been a long day already. We're getting home from Sweden. The Penguins take 3 or 4 points on the NHL Global Series in Stockholm, losing, overtime game 1, which was really just as ugly as ugly gets. And they still got a point against a pretty bad team. And then in game 2, obviously the 4-0 shutout. So this is No Pucks Given episode like 38, 39. We don't actually keep track. It's kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the episode numbers don't really matter. From the Atlanta Airport Lounge, that's where I'm currently stationed. Got a couple hours before the next flight, so we're going to go ahead and get the podcast out of the way. And I might even get some sleep from Monday into Tuesday. Let me kind of tackle maybe the big issue. Before we get to, the show is a bit, I'm going to pack way too much into this. Obviously, we're going to talk about what we learned on the Swedish trip and even the couple of games before them. But also, we're going to talk about, I think one thing Kyle Dubas said last spring, like last April, that kind of upset him. I think we're seeing the fruits of that now. Maybe we didn't quite know what it meant, but we are now. The number of new players who are just playing out of their skates in the first 19, 20 games to this point. We're going to go through, those handful of guys. The goaltending situation, talk about a good problem to have all of a sudden, where Artie Sheloff's is a .917 save percentage. Tristan Jarry is coming back in a couple of weeks. And, by the way, some kid named Sergei Murashov. We'll get into Malkin and where we project the Penguins at this point. You get to that 18-20 game mark. We're 25% into the season. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the P word, although the standings are getting really bunched up. So it's not quite the panacea that you might think when I tell you the Penguins are in third place. Plus, I put the call out on X for some Q&As. So as I get through all of that, then I'm going to look on social media and, So there might be some background noise. There might be some conversations because, I'm in a public place and I can't really tell people to be quiet now, can I? Let's talk about what we learned on the Swedish trip, right? I thought it was wildly educational. The previous couple of games, the Penguins dominated, let's call it 4.5 of the 6 periods against New Jersey, LA. And they lost. They got 1 point out of those 2 games. So what do? They go to Sweden. Everybody's amped up. The crowd is going crazy. Every time Erik Karlsson stick handles, the place sort of, bestows favored son status upon him. And the Penguins are absolutely terrible. They weren't flat. They were just tossing hand grenades around the ice. I mean, it was brutal. The passes were just bricking behind guys in the skates, off the wall. At no point were they in any way connected. So you think, okay, they're going to get blown out. By the grace of God for them anyway, there's Nashville that just looks like an absolute it's a dog breakfast of a team. You've got some talented players, Jonathan Marchessault, Steven Stamkos, that blue line, Roman Josi, and so on and so forth, Jussi Saros in goal. That team should be competitive. They're not. My goodness. They are poorly put together. They play they play heavy. I'll give them that, but I won't give them much more, quite frankly. So the Penguins actually shut them out 58 minutes, 50 seconds. I had my post-game story written, and I know better. A 1-goal lead late in the third period. I'm like, okay, let's get through this. We can do it. And of course, the tying goal then becomes very polarizing. I hope that you all read my stuff on Saturday, Friday night, Saturday, whenever you got to it because of the time difference. Who was at fault? Because I don't know about anybody else. My social media blew up, Friday night, Saturday morning. It was Evgeny Malkin's fault. And I didn't want to be rude. Or, in this case, because I understood why people thought it was, in fact, Malkin's fault. That tying goal on Friday, because the goal was scored from where Malkin lined up on the faceoff. Now, I understand 95% of our audience, or the American audience, quite frankly, is, never played higher level hockey. So they didn't understand that Malkin had a job to do. Right off the faceoff, he used to go to the point and go, especially with a win. If it's a loss, then he adjusts. But Sidney Crosby won the faceoff, and so it wasn't that Malkin vacated his spot. Malkin actually went to his spot, and there, things sort of spiraled from there. And Penguins are just a terrible overtime team. They can practice it all they want. Mike Sullivan tried for a couple of years. Dan Muse can hold 2-hour practices. He just doesn't have the horses anymore. Overtime is so much a little bit of luck, but also it just seems the younger players are better in overtime. Sidney Crosby can't get in the corner and grind away 5-on-5 in overtime. So fast forward to Sunday, and I thought that was the interesting game, because that it told me everything I needed to know. It really did. And so let me kind of build the base out from there. What the Sunday game told me, because they started brilliantly. I don't know if you could hear on the television broadcast. I mean, we actually really couldn't see the TV broadcast. There were no replays in the building, or very few replays. And I was flying blind. All the stuff I like to do, pull up a replay and dissect it, couldn't do any of that over in Stockholm. The first period, I don't know if you could hear, like I said, the passes were echoing off the blades, tape to tape, clack, clack, clack. It was as crisp and clean as the Penguins will play all season. They will not exceed what they did in the first period against Nashville. I mean, they might equal it, but they will never exceed it. The breakout routes were run to perfection. You saw a couple of the plays, kind of the wheel around where the center kind of dips deeper into the zone and gets a running start out. Winger or defenseman just taps it off the wall right to the center, and there they go. Speed to the neutral zone, and Nashville was just running. They were chasing to catch up for the entire first period. And that doesn't happen if those passes don't connect. And that's sort of what, Muse's tight, pack mentality, whereas Mike Sullivan would stretch it out. That was, Sullivan liked to, let's call it, the bomb offense, where they would stretch out the passes, and, they would look for those one-on-one matchups, whereas Muse has them sort of triangulated in threes, close puck support. And that just absolutely wiped Nashville off the ice in the first period. The second period, the Penguins didn't have to play as well. I mean, they're up 3-0, but they didn't screw up. We've seen them screw up against Toronto. We saw them screw up against LA. And they flirted with it. Don't get me wrong. There was about 2 or 3 minutes in that second period, in the first handful of minutes, where it was kind of boring. I was like, oh, interesting. But then it opened up. They started trading chances. I expected Nashville to score a couple of goals. Full disclosure there. Nashville was going to score a couple, but I guess maybe the referees helped them out, right? With 3 consecutive penalties, bang, bang, bang. And the Penguins had to buckle down. They couldn't play the globetrotter hockey that they so often revert to when they have a cushion. I don't know what it is. There's just something in the DNA of the team. When they have a multi-goal cushion, they like to spend it playing, some high risk or high reward hockey, thinking they're going to pad their stats or, win 7-0. In the reality, it just, I'm trying to get the people out of the background. I don't know why that's been that case for years. They kill off those 3 penalties and then strangled the life out of the game and Nashville. Chris Letang wouldn't admit to the game being boring. He's like, yeah, we tried to make it boring on Friday and they came back on us. Fair enough. But I don't know what else you call what they did in the third period. From an X's and O's standpoint, I'm going to maybe bore some of you who want to talk about the more fun things. But from an X's and O's standpoint, in the third period, and even later in the second, you saw the Penguins' third forward, the F3, staying high religiously. You didn't see defensemen taking unnecessary gambles, but even on the forecheck, Evgeny Malkin peeled off a couple of times, kind of retreating towards the blue line to create an extra layer of traffic. So Nashville's never able to generate momentum, speed, get back in the game. And about 5 minutes into the third period, they're like, oh, okay, we give up. We'll see you guys. Their plane was packed, the bus was running. They were ready to get out of Stockholm well before the midway point of the third period. They had that one last gasp, and Sergei Murashov makes a couple of saves. Now that I've spent 10 minutes, 11 minutes setting all of that up, let me tell you what it means. And here is what I think we learned about the Penguins. They have a heart. They have heart, does this team. They didn't get stupid. I mean, they flirted with it, and they were able to actually correct and learn from recent mistakes. You and I have watched this team for now a couple of years, more than a couple of years, just absolutely self-destruct in that situation. Give back leads. Maybe they win, maybe they don't. They led the league in giving up multi-goals, couple years running. So we learned that they actually, dare I say, are for real. This is no longer a fluky start. This is no longer sort of that, oh, that's cute. They have an 8-game point streak. They're 8-2-2. It won't last. We're 20 games in. They just got, they were, until Sunday, they were 1-3-2 in their last 6 games. And yet they came out and submitted one of their best efforts. That should tell you everything you kind of need to know about the core and the DNA of this current team. Now, that is also predicated, and I think sustainably so, on plenty of the new players. There's a handful. And that kind of goes back to remember what Kyle Dubas said last April. He was kind of miffed that so many veterans wanted to stay on a playoff team or a non-playoff team 2 years running, 3 years running. It's like, what do you mean you guys all want to stay? We're losing. And that, I don't know if I've quite seen Dubas with that sort of tone or that facial expression. It was a definite WTF moment from him. Like, what are you guys talking about? You should want out of here. And no one did. So he overhauled a good bit of the team. And I don't know who scouted some of these players. I don't know if this was sort of his encyclopedic knowledge, it seems, that he has of some of these depth players around the league in the AHL. I mean, last year he goes and gets Ryan Shea out of obscurity in the Dallas organization. Brilliant move. This past summer, he plucks Parker Wotherspoon, 7th, 8th defenseman in Boston, really can't break through into the lineup come hell or high water. Dubas is like, that's a top 4 defenseman. He has been right. Everybody else, wrong. On Shea, on Wotherspoon. I was fairly critical of the Anthony Mantha signing. Didn't think much of it. I was never a big fan of Mantha when he was in Washington. Kind of thought he was a softer perimeter sort of guy who didn't do the things that he could do to be successful. Well, here with the Penguins, look at this. I mean, 8 goals in 19 games, 14 points. He has a real chance with the chemistry he's developed with Evgeny Malkin to shatter his career highs. He's on that pace. I don't know if you saw any of the post game videos in Stockholm. I sort of pulled him aside in the locker room and had a few questions. If I can pop the audio into this, I will. And in fact, you know what? For my producer Scott, at 15:30 here, I'm going to pause for the audio if we can. He kind of wanted to go a little bit deeper because Kyle a couple weeks ago was talking about wanting the Penguins to be a destination team for players, overcoming injury or wanting a greater role than they've had in the past. So obviously, I kind of injury category. I'm just curious, in finding the role here. What was you kind of finding what Pittsburgh talking about in the offseason to be true to this point in the season with a greater role and opportunity?
I guess so. I mean, I'll be honest. Before I signed, I didn't really listen to anything any team was saying. I'm not focusing on any team because I don't know who's interested, who's not. So that's news to me that you're bringing that up. But
Okay.
For me, when I signed here, they told me I could have a chance to play either with Sid or Gino, and then I think chemistry with Gino just kind of settled in really quick. Him and Braz, and we for a couple of games, and it's been good. I mean, I can't complain.
Is there anything you're doing a little bit differently this year? Maybe with some time to watch last year, or at this point in your careers. I mean, have you added something or taken away something even, or is it just putting it all together here?
Yeah, I think it's hard to pinpoint. Obviously, I had 11 months to do my rehab to come out in the best shape I can, and I think that was really my focus for the upcoming season, which is this one, and I'm right here.
You have a creative game, much like Gino.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, just the good parts, right? How difficult is it sometimes to play with somebody who is playing chess out there?
I would say it was a little challenge early on. You kind of get used to the way he plays. Obviously, he's going to try different things on the ice, and either offensively or defensively, and you can kind of need to adjust, and you kind of see it coming sometimes.
Sometimes?
Sometimes you do. And then you just need to adjust quick and be there for him, and that pass and go, he's going to be willing to give it back.
Thank you very much. Okay, it continues on the video side, or you heard commercials. In fact, just in case Scott's little, because Scott edits these very early in the morning, so if you heard the audio, great. If not, it was kind of loud and convoluted. Otherwise, we're going to take a break right here. Going, Anthony Mantha. It was a constant juggling act for people on my side, me especially, to give the European media, the folks who don't get a chance to cover a lot of NHL games, space to do their thing. I mean, they weren't asking questions that you would have been interested in. I certainly wasn't. But I also know that they felt that their readers and the European audience would have enjoyed it. So there's only one tense moment, by the way, before I get to Anthony Mantha. It was, a Latvian reporter kind of tried to take over the Arturs Šilovs post-game on Friday, speaking native language. So I glanced at my colleagues. They came over to, because we always talk to the starting goalie after the game, win or lose. And okay, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 questions. He's starting to take over like it's a one-on-one. So I guess maybe me as the old guy taps him. Hey, we have to do English now. And he looked, and I felt bad that Artie Sheloff sort of I didn't realize that they had spent 90 seconds or 2 minutes just talking in their native language. But we all have a job to do. You can't do that stuff anyway. Uh, to Mantha, now that I've taken another 2 minutes here before I got to the Anthony Mantha story, and I was trying to lead him into more of a conversation rather than a quick soundbite back and forth. And so, I was like, you and Gino, your games kind of seem to mesh pretty well. There's some real similarities in how you play and some of the things you bring. He kind of just, without missing a beat, goes, I hope that's a compliment. Yeah, in this case, it was. He's got a real dry, kind of punchy sense of humor. If you're not ready for it, and he doesn't like crack a smile or laugh, he just, and it's amusing when you realize you've just been, poked pretty good. What they are doing and the way he's using his size here in the first 19 games for the Penguins has shocked me. I didn't expect to see it coming. Asked Dan Muse about it, and yeah, Muse talked about how he's able to get between the dots and where he's scoring from, the playmaking ability. And I'll tell you what, he's skating significantly better than a 32-year-old who had ACL surgery. Let's see here. I guess it'd be like 9 months ago now. And he's been skating well all the way through training camp and preseason, now into the season. I didn't expect any of that from Mantha. So Dubas pretty much just hit home run after home run through the offseason. He's run the table on this. That's, Wotherspoon, Shea. I don't know that Parker Wotherspoon is getting enough credit for how well he's playing. He's settling into sort of a quiet role, which, he's not pushing the play as much as he did in the first 5 or 10 games. But that's in part because he and Erik Karlsson have sort of formed this symbiotic pair, and Karlsson is just going off, and Wotherspoon is protecting him. It's a legitimate number one pairing for the Penguins, and I don't even have to praise him. Parker Wotherspoon's a player when I have to talk about him, it's probably a bad thing. He really, he's maybe adopting a same number too, not coincidentally, as Marcus Pettersson, adopting a lot of that very quiet, stable, consistent, puck-moving role with the Penguins. Have I mentioned all the new players? Oh, no, I haven't gotten to Artie Shelov's yet. Another move that I was really dubious on because he made 10 games in the NHL last year before the Canucks, Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin said enough. No, this can't go on. Sent him back to the AHL, where he spent the rest of the season. Kevin Lankinen came in, took his job, and even though Thatcher Demko really struggles being healthy, in fact, he's on the IR again this season, they still traded Shelovs for just a fourth-round pick. That's all he was worth. And with the Penguins, with this pretty strict goalie rotation, .917 save percentage. You'll take that. I'm not going to tell you he's been perfect. The rebound control has been spotty. He has the last couple of games greatly improved that. And I think when Shelovs is on his game, I'm starting to get a beat on him. His glove is much better when he's on his games. I mean, the first month of the season, his glove was a brick. And that contributed to that rebound, or the lack of rebound control. But Sergei Miroshov, how much fun is it to watch, a goalie who could be special? There's a calm, a poise, a presence with Miroshov. None of this is out of the ordinary for him. He's not making spectacular diving windmill saves. He's not also in the process over maneuvering like Marc-Andre Fleury did in his first handful of years. He's calm and he stays within the pipes and he's on every angle. He also understands the game. Where puck comes near, paw on it, done. Play over. So it's entirely sustainable because he's not doing anything that you don't expect a goalie to do, but he's adding those little details to the game that maybe Penguins goalies have failed to do in the last. But let's be honest. I mean, Tristan Jarry had a couple first halves of the season, which he was an all-star. But then the second halves would always sort of bite him. Penguins goalie hasn't been solid all year since Matt Murray in 2018. Of course, that was when his glove hand was starting to really show. 17, when he and Fleury went back and forth and they were both great. So, yeah, we are talking that long, and Miroshov's only played 2 games. I don't know what Kyle Dubas is going to do when Tristan Jarry is healthy in about 2 weeks. I really don't know. I know that the team loves Miroshov. Loves him. Management loves him. Players love him. The players are already bought in. The things that they are saying about him, they didn't say these things about Sheloffs or Jarry. The players are genuinely impressed by him. Take it for what it's worth, right? You always have to kind of nitpick or sift through what's a cliche, what's just a general compliment to the media, and what is real, what's authentic and genuine. Chris Letang was like his preparation. He comes to the rink every day knowing, what he needs to do, and he works on it, and you can see it in the results. That was sort of a genuine comment, especially since one of the European reporters really asked him sort of a grenade question right before then. I felt bad. I don't know if he was Finnish or Swedish, but he asked Chris Letang if he thought he would make the Canadian Olympic team. It's like, oh, brother, just back up, man. Just duck. Letang handled it pretty well. Dodged it with, there's a lot of good players, we'll see. But, I mean, 2 seconds of research, and Letang's not even, he's not under consideration. They're down to 30 players, and maybe 10 years ago. Let me see what else I've got here on the notebook that I wanted to get into. Oh, here is my there's my notes. So I guess we've gone through Miroshov. Let me tell you a bit about Miroshov's game, though. In addition to the cool, calm, collected, poised, aware game that he plays, I want you to watch his glove hand. He has got a slick mitt. He'll flash the glove side just a bit. He'll give shooters just an inch, knowing full well that his glove is faster than the puck. He'll give it and he'll just take it right away. So he has, I think that also watch his, I don't know what to call it. So I'm going to maybe use a layman's term here, or the modified butterfly. And the fact that he doesn't flop. You don't see him going down. You don't see him caught sprawled on the ice. You don't see him lunging or reaching. He's always has his feet beneath him, so he's able to go laterally or even forward to take away an angle. He's made a lot of difficult saves just with routine because he's already taken away the net. And all right, so in the final few minutes here before I get to the Q&A, playoffs. For all of the Penguins winning, 10 wins to this point, They're only 2 points ahead of the Rangers, 2 points and 1 game in hand ahead of the Rangers for being out of the playoffs. They're in third place. They could be, 2-game losing streak, or even just, a couple of ties, a couple of overtime losses over 2 games. They could be out of the playoffs, or out of the playoff seeds. So that's the interesting thing. 10 days to Thanksgiving. I don't know that means a whole lot with this Eastern Conference this year. That magical Thanksgiving sort of pole in the track, because it's going to be so tight. There's going to be 4 teams within 2 points all season. Second place out of the playoffs back in, wild card and in and out all season. Having said all of that, I look at the meat the Penguins have left on the bone in some of these games, but I also look at what they have available to them without making a trade. I think we can probably agree that Philip Tomasino has been far too comfortable being invisible. His NHL run is a good guy. I hate to say this, coming to an end. Tommy Novak is elevating his play. We're starting to see that spark that earned him a 3-year, $3.5 million contract. But there will be a couple of spaces that, whether the Penguins want to bring up Tristan Brose, whether it's Sam Poulin, those would be bottom 6 substitutions, and I think they would add to the lineup, both of them, quite frankly. I'm kind of rooting for Sam Poulin. That guy has gone through hell and back twice at this point. Is 6 years, more than 6 years since he was drafted. The personal issues and everything that he's gone through, and he had a great training camp. He's putting up a solid season already in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. If you're going to need a 4th-line winger, you'd have to look at him. Or even a 3rd-line winger. You look at Poulin over Tristan Brose, who really is limited to playing center. And that's going to be Brose's issue getting to the NHL, because Kindle showed us that he's a much better center than a winger. When Muse put Kindle back at center on Sunday, that 3rd line jumped again. I don't think you can take him out of that spot, but you also can't put Brose on one of the wings. So that's going to be his thing. Rutger McGroarty made his season debut Saturday for Wilkes-Barre, and you'd have to think, he scores a goal. Everybody said, we actually had our new reporter, Sam Knoll, covering the game, and everybody said that McGroarty was maybe the best player on the ice. Now that's adrenaline, that's, it's a lot of things. We'll see in 5 or 10 games, but that's a couple of weeks from now. Once the adrenaline wears off, he's probably easily a top 6 insertion into the Penguins lineup. For all of the good changes that Dan Muse made Sunday, he also had Connor Dewar on the top line. That's probably not where you want to go. Having said all of that now, given the Penguins' ability to turn it around and not self-destruct, given the lineup additions that are still waiting to be inserted, given the goaltending situation, which is now suddenly a strength, I really like Dan Muse's system. It's interesting. It's actually counter to everything else everyone else is doing. Everyone else right now, all the other coaches are trying to copy Carolina, and they're playing like a man-to-man, high in the zone. Muse has gone the other way, and they're playing a zone, high in the zone, a zone defense, high in the defensive zone, and then playing man-to-man down low. So it's creating a difficulty for opponents to get between the dots for a good shot. because there's just more traffic. It's easier to play man-to-man in the small spaces than it is to play man-to-man up high where there's lots of space. So, if I had to bet, I'm not going to bet my bottom dollar on it. I'd probably give the Penguins a solid 60% chance, 65 maybe, of making the playoffs. All right, let me check. Let me see if I got any good Q&A, because I got a bunch of weird ones last week when I did this. I obviously posted some of the meals I had in Stockholm, and for what odd reason, I'm now like I was trending in Sweden because of some of the things I was eating, and people were like, "Oh, that's great! You should try this, try that," and now like I don't know where they're coming from. Like people in the Mediterranean are just blowing up my Twitter. I don't get it, but let's see here. So anyway, there's one question I'm gonna get to here. That's from Jim, our buddy Jim Stripsky. Why is Tomasino still on the roster? He's had plenty of runway to show he deserves a roster spot, and I don't think he's shown enough to stay. I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. I don't need to belabor it. I hate piling on players. He's just too comfortable being invisible. He really, Mike Sullivan was on him last season to be harder on the puck, more effective and efficient and physical on the walls, to make a greater effort to get between the dots, to be on the right side of the puck in the defensive zone. He's improved since the Penguins acquired him last November, and his game was a mess. But in that process to improve, it looks like he's sort of given away a bit of that offensive flair too. And he's not doing the other things well enough to offset the lack of offense. So if he's not scoring, he's not really helping you. I see McGroarty up in a couple of weeks. Maybe Poulin gets the call. All right, kids, that is it from the lovely Delta Lounge in the Atlanta airport. You will probably hear this on Tuesday morning. Hopefully the sound was pretty good, and I don't have to re-record this. In the meantime, eventually I will, in fact, get home. I don't want to see the dust bunnies floating through my house, but I'm sure there's a few. They breed. And if you also like to do laundry, I'll tell you where I live. In the meantime, have fun.